Good evening. Welcome to the Azeroth review. If you're new, say hi. This is just where we talk about anything World of Warcraft related. And one of the topics might be a little bit predictable. I came home today. In fact, last night when I actually remembered to put this out, I'm just going to click something off there. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if someone will have got the world first when it goes out tomorrow, or will one of them be really rude and do it in the middle of everything? But it's been done. I actually came home. It must have happened just after I came home, because I came home to find out that limits were re-clearing. And I thought to myself, because in Aldir they didn't, did they? You know, it got to the point where the second reset for North America came out, and I was thinking, should limit re-clear? My attitude is generally yes, but I understand in that particular situation, it's a very difficult decision because it might take you some time to re-clear. You can get stuck on bosses again. In the end, didn't quite do it. And then this time, so I got home to find out, the re-clearing. I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, is that because of just the fact that they're doing it and they're thinking, do you know what, we could really do with more gear, we're having a bit of a struggle here? Or did it weigh on their minds that maybe, only in hindsight, I don't think it was a bad decision, but in hindsight, maybe they'd have preferred to re-clear last time. But unfortunately, while they're still re-clearing, Method killed Jaina. So the world first race is over. Method have done it again, as is up there somewhere. There we go. Jaina has been defeated by Method. But anyway, hello everyone. Connor, Robert. What do I think is the better MMO, WoW or ESO? For endgame stuff, WoW. Because even though you can argue, okay, I haven't really experienced proper endgame in ESO, nonetheless, just the way you have to play characters, I think, is degenerate to min-max. To min-max, playing your character in ESO is degenerate gameplay. So, but I also think probably in other respects, WoW is better as well. But for all other casual elements of the game, ESO is better. It is just a better game from a technical point of view. Whether there's, particular ones where you prefer the storyline or the art style or something like that, that's more subjective. But I just think the game is just technically better in ESO for a casual. Hi, Patrick. But anyway, yes. So Method did indeed have get the world first. They got it a little under, it was more than an hour ago. Can't remember now. But yes, very recently anyway. So they've done that. Limit probably will be second. Exorcist still didn't seem to make a big impression, did they? They were very disappointed with themselves in... I'm just going to have a look where the rankings are at the moment. They were very disappointed with themselves, I know, after Aldi, and they were going to come back fighting, but I'm not sure. You left before the first raid came out. Well, I mean, am I even still in the game? It's hard for me to say. I'm not really active in the game at the moment, I have to confess. I am spending more time on PTRs and looking at stuff that's coming up than I am spending time on the thing that's out, which is weird. Left before the first raid came out. Guild asked you back. Having trouble figuring out the class. Inquisition maintenance doesn't feel good. Inquisition's all right. You just have to get used to it. It's absolutely fine. The biggest thing about Inquisition is making sure that you've got something. Because when I haven't played it for a while, like if I were to go and play it now, I would play Inquisition poorly. And the reason is this. Because before you use a big cooldown, like obviously Wings, Avenging Wrath, you don't want to be refreshing Inquisition during Avenging Wrath. So you sort of have to have a little bit of awareness. You're going to use Avenging Wrath, right? Have I got enough Inquisition to clear it? And if not, refresh it early. So that's the way yeah. But eventually you get used to it. I mean, I used to have something, well, I still do technically, flash up. So if Avenging Wrath is about to come off cooldown or is off cooldown, I have something flashing up if I have less than something like 27 seconds, 25 seconds or whatever of Inquisition. Will I look back in the future and regret giving up raiding The same as in Wrath. Right. Although I get... Right, there's 2 times I've given up raiding, technically. One is, yes, is in Wrath, and second is now. The first time, I regret it, but it was only in hindsight. Here's the way it was. Or I played through the beta in Wrath of the Lich King, but only on my own, not with a guild, so I hadn't really done raid stuff. So, the game came out, I leveled up. It took me a while because I was doing it around work, but it took a few other people a while as well. I was in a really good raiding guild by then as well. Well into the top 100. And we did Naxxramas in a night. We went along to Naxxramas. I missed the first few bosses getting back from work. We cleared the whole thing in a night. Later that week, we went and did Obsidian Sanctum and we did Malagos. All the raid bosses gone. I hadn't even killed all the dungeon bosses at the time. Only just dinged. When I was killing Malagos, the hardest boss in the game, I was still skilling up my blue dungeon polearm. I was appalled. I thought this is absolutely... And all we had to do from that point on is achievements. And I had in my head, because I didn't know differently, I thought, is this what raiding is now? Because what they'd brought with Wrath, first of all, there were the different modes of raiding. So you had your 10-man raiding and your 25-man raiding. 10-man raiding was easier. So then you're thinking, all right, they're already making it. And I, you know, in my mind, at the time, I was still very anti-casual content. I mellowed out since then. I regret my ways. But at the time, I was not happy with what I saw as casualification of hard mode. I wasn't opposed to casual content in the game, but making the hard mode stuff casual. Then the fact that a good guild clears all the bosses in no time without any challenge, and then, you know, all you've got to do is achievements. That's your challenge. And I thought that was the pattern. That's it. I didn't realise that Uldir... See, what had obviously... Not Uldir, Ulduar, sorry. So obviously what had happened was they'd just been lazy with that first raid, and it was never their intention for that to be like that later in the expansion. But I didn't know that, so I quit. So although I regret it, that's with hindsight. I don't think I made a bad decision at the time. Lately, the decision to quit raiding at the end of Legion wasn't a decision. It had to be done. I cannot raid. I do not have enough time. Work is easy. Do you know what? I was almost going to say work is easing up a little bit at the moment, but actually that's not true, because on Friday I lost my memory stick, which had loads of work on it. And I know you're going to say you should back it up. I do. I don't back it up very often. So I've actually lost 2 months worth of work. And I do a lot of work. So there was no decision in Legion. I cannot raid. I cannot stick to that timetable. It's not possible. If it weren't for all the extra stuff you have to do outside of raiding, I still wouldn't be able to do it. That's how bad work is this. Not so bad, but, you know, in terms of taking up my time. So anyway, so that's that. Who am I missing? Hi, Caleb. The new raid is worth coming back. I didn't quit raiding because I don't like raiding anymore. You know, I quit raiding. I ain't got time. I haven't got the time. I can't do it. Have I done? No, I haven't done any fights. I haven't done any raiding. You know, I haven't even cleared Uldir. I haven't even done Gahoon on LFR. It wasn't my intention, I'll admit, to give up all modes of raiding, but that's just the way it's turned out. I won't pug, and I'm not in a guild that has... I'm not saying I expected it to, but it doesn't have like outruns or anything like that very often. So there's nothing from that point of view. And even my Mythic Plus posse has grown disinterested, which I predicted, actually, if I'm honest. So no, I haven't watched their kill video either, although as they describe it, a retreat video, because you don't kill her, of course. The very idea of killing Jaina. Can't kill Jaina. Best you can do is get her upset with you so she goes off in a huff. Wrath ended up having great raiding. BFA probably won't. The raiding, I'm sure, will be great. It was great in Legion. The only criticism I ever have of raiding was two. One is gimmick bosses. I don't believe anyone likes the gimmick bosses. You know, your likes of Dark Animus and the Hellfire Assault thing in the start of Hellfire Citadel. People don't like that. I certainly don't like that. But the only other criticism I ever have is that certain classes are just on every fight. Never mind this, oh, you know, everyone has their niche on this fight. Bullshit. It's the fact that some classes are always going to be good. And some classes are very rarely going to be good. And you create a guild roster based on what is always going to be good. And you will do, even if there's one fight where this particular spec is really good, you're not going to have that in your roster. You'll do without, unless it's essential. So, yeah, the classing and spec inclusion is my only other criticism. And you could argue that's as much to do with the class design team as it is the encounter design team. But in terms of the actual fights and the designs of the fights, there's very few fights that I think are bad fights in the whole game. Do I think Final Fantasy or ESO could surpass WoW in terms of endgame content? See, I don't really know enough about Final Fantasy because it's not... I tried getting into it and I couldn't. It's just not my style. I can't get into it. So I also don't take... The only time I ever find out anything about Final Fantasy is when Lazy Peon does a video on it. And he doesn't play it that much. I know Az plays it, but he hardly ever does videos where he doesn't do those sort of videos anymore. Well, he might do every now and then, I suppose. So every now and then, if he puts a video out, I'll sometimes watch it just out of interest. So, but I don't believe ESO could surpass World of Warcraft in Endgame because, like I say, the most important part of playing a role-playing game is your character, your class. And if the way you have to play it seriously, the way you have to min-max it is degenerate, it's poor. The idea of animation cancelling is poor. To actually, and they're okay with it. It's not just a natural consequence. The developers have said they're okay with it. So, because their developers actually talk to the player base. It's quite spectacular. Oh, you wouldn't believe how, if you only play World of Warcraft, you would not believe the fact that other MMOs actually have games developers who not only do live streamed like discussions, they actually answer questions in the chat. This is quite remarkable. Anyone would think if you only played World of Warcraft that this is impossible. Of course, Blizzard don't answer questions in the chat. Have you seen the chat? No, it is actually doable. Wow, done right. It's definitely a second job. What you mean playing seriously? Yeah. But even if not, I mean, like, although I have a number of hobbies, and you could say, well, just get rid of all that. Well, I don't want to get rid of all of them. But secondly, all the hobbies I have right now, I can do on a casual basis. So if I'm really busy one night with work, that's okay. I'll put off what I was going to do hobby-wise till the next night, and that's all okay. You can't do that with raiding. I can't turn up every now and then and just say, sorry, work. 8.2 is trying to mitigate burnout. I mean, I don't have burnout either. You know, if it wasn't literally, if I didn't foresee what was going to happen at work this year, I would still have been raiding. I'd have not been very complimentary about quite a lot of this expansion, but I would still be raiding, and I'm sure I'd still be... Well, I say I'm sure. I may not have enjoyed all day as a Rep Paladin, but this tier... Well, I say tier. Do we call it a tier anymore? This raid is it's good. Talking about gimmicky bosses, did you hear the speculation of bosses from Final Fantasy being added in WoW and vice versa? No. Bosses from Final Fantasy being added in WoW and vice versa? What? They're doing a collaboration. Is this going to be like the Family Guy Simpsons crossover? Hi, Whittleton. I don't place any importance at all on EU. Do you know what? For this time, I actually wanted Limit to win. I'm ashamed to say, because I'm totally neutral, I don't know anyone from Limit and I don't know anyone from Method. But when I saw that Method had done it, I was a little disappointed. I mean, congratulations to them. It's not that I don't want them to win it. I just wanted a change. I wanted someone else to win. And it's nice that at Limit are at least making a race of it. But the problem is, even when the race is close, if it's always the same group that wins it, you just get the feeling it's not really that close, is it? Because you would think if it was super tight, which it is, at some point someone else is going to win it, but they just never seem to. On ESO, if you push all your skills in the right order, you get like 25k damage. I don't even know what that means. No damage meter. I mean, I know you could probably get around that somehow. I don't even know how much damage I'm doing in there. If your animation cancel and weave in light attacks correctly, you push 50k. Well, I mean, okay, you're demonstrating the proportional difference. But that's it. That's exactly what I don't like about it. I refuse to play like that, which means that I would never play ESO seriously. Just because of that, I refuse. ESO trials, you haven't tried, but dungeons are really fun to me. Quite a lot of it is fun with the right group. You know, like anything. You know, ESO is a fun game. If you're going to do group work, I'd rather do it with people I know, and I don't know anyone in it, so I'm not going to do it. And I don't play it enough to need to do group content. Method proves World of Warcraft is not paid to... There wouldn't be anyway. Well, hang on a minute. Who was it that went over to Alliance to get their like item thing? That, or was it the other way around? The higher item level item. That cost money, didn't it? I don't know. There's a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, is that like a really big bowl for popcorn? What's the Super Bowl? No, I know what the Super Bowl is. The only one of the two cooking channels I actually subscribe to, every Super Bowl does a chicken wings recipe for some reason. The one they did this year, actually, I was quite tempted about. Unfortunately, I don't think I can really have chicken wings anymore. You wanted someone else to win. That's a very teacher-like thing to say. No, I just wanted a change. It's a sports fans thing to say when you're not a fan of either of the teams competing. You know, when you're watching it as a pure neutral, sometimes you're just tempted to root for the underdog. I wouldn't describe Limit as an underdog as such in this race, but really just for the change, for the hell of it, just someone different. It's not that I never want Method to get a world first again. I just want someone in the mix. Sorry, I was trying to look at where Exhaust got. Where are Exhaust at the moment? They're still in 4th. But do you know what I didn't like about this tier, though, from the world race point of view? You had the top guilds get onto Jaina super, super quickly. And then it was like a week to kill it. Nearly a full week. I don't like that. And I know you can't get it gradually up there. But I don't really understand why it had to be that Jaina... I know they kept pissing about with it as well. You know, Blizzard have kept tuning her. You know, that probably hasn't helped. But... And earlier today, they said they accidentally made her more difficult and then tuned it back. I wondered if that was a little bit of help for Limit because they were re-clearing and they wouldn't have cared about that. I don't know. But I was disappointed that you ended up with over 20 guilds on Jaina before Jaina died. That's disappointing. Because then you imagine, I know they're going to put nerfs in at some point. You sort of imagine what it's going to be like for other guilds. So let's say you've got a load of other guilds. They finally get 8 out of 9 after how much time? And then they've got Jaina to do? Given the ratio of pulls needed for the other guilds? Ooh. Is that going to be a guild breaker? It's an horrible, horrible prospect. Limit faction change using gold to take advantage of the 400 item level gear. The Alliance had access to. What? Didn't Method as well? I'd have done it. I'd have absolutely done it. Any bets on if Ian is still game director at the end of BFA? Yeah, I see no reason why he wouldn't be. At all. You know, it's not like the previous guy was much better and they were in pace for ages. So yeah, I do think he will be. you've got to understand as well, even the people that, you know, higher up than him, if they're not satisfied with what he's doing, they can easily just give him some direction, and they're not doing. So that to me says that they're perfectly happy with him. They're not necessarily disappointed with him. Third faction you own, no, there's zero chance of it. A third faction, first of all, right, it would not be acceptable to the player base. You'd be splitting up friend groups, guild groups, things like that. But secondly, it's no longer needed in the game. Used to be, but now it isn't. All forms of PvE and PvP are totally separate. There is no merging of PvE and PvP. There is no real world PvP. No genuine world PvP, because it's all sharded. Where is the benefit in a third faction? It has ceased to exist. And even if, like, a third faction is something that helps avoid imbalance in factions, if it's there at the start, you can't introduce it because the imbalance is then already there. Too late then. You just like ESO because of the character customization. Light years better than WoW. You made a temple attack that you could also heal the group, so you could do both roles at once in almost all content. We used to be able to do that with Paladins in vanilla. I think WoW needs to shift back towards an RPG. It's down a path. It's not going to go into reverse in any serious way. It's, I mean, where are we? When did it come out? I've forgotten now. 14 years, is it? It's 14 years, is it? Yeah. Just over. I mean, by the time the next expansion comes out, it'll be 16 years old. It's getting on. You get to a point where you think it's probably better to bring out a new Warcraft game than to make major changes to this one. Crown Store throws you off ESO. I mean, it does have an online store. It does also have the dreaded loot boxes, which is I'm not a fan of. I never pay crowns for them though. Sometimes they do promotions that'll just give you some if you log on and do a thing. I get some that way. But no, I don't see WoW making a massive paradigm shift. At least not backwards. It's, yeah, that's why I said, I mean, another thing, I just look at it as well. You know, they haven't got the resources to do that. I mean, we'll wait. What I've said is I'm going to wait to see what the next expansion is like. I'm not playing through the next expansion if it's going to be like this. I don't have any faith that it will be better. I mean, I've got to go through those reasons. But I'm not going to say that it's definitely not going to be at this point, because there's a few possibilities for thinking optimistically. Loot box of the devil, and yet you buy them. Well, they are. They really shouldn't be in. Loot boxes shouldn't be in. It's there just deliberately to try and get you to spend money you wouldn't ordinarily wish to spend. And I'm not saying I never use them. If I... You know, in Star Wars The Old Republic, when I've got enough, like, cartel coins built up, I usually do. But I don't in ESO. And I think the main reason is because there are actually things to get, cosmetic items to get off in ESO with the crowns that, you know, I'll just go and I'll get that instead. So I don't usually build up enough to have such an excess that I might as well get some. All your money's going to Warhammer now. Do you know what? For me, it literally is. With the Skaven book announced, I'm so excited. I've just ordered, without the book's not even out yet. The new stuff isn't even out yet. But because I know that in a couple of weeks' time, and it's coming out for the half term, I've got a week, and I am going to paint them. Painting them. So I've already ordered 200 quid's worth of Skaven. And I'm... You know, this weekend when the pre-orders come out, I reckon I'm going to be spending another 300 quid. I reckon it might be more than 300 quid I end up spending. I am spending hundreds of pounds on rats this month. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. It's my favourites. But anyway, they should go the whole hog into upgradable gear through professions. Well, they sort of did that a little bit in Legion. I thought, in Warlords of Draenor, I thought one of the good things about it was the craftable gear. And I thought in Legion they made it even better. And then they seemed to scale it back for BFA. It's not so good. It's really not so good. Clan Scryer is best. I know I want all the clans. But that's what the new battle term gives you. It needs all the clans. I want some Pestilence in there. I want some Scryer. I'm not keen on Mulder. Mulder. And I want some Eshin in there. Problem is getting all the things I want in. I can't. You haven't got the points for it. So it's going to be tricky. But anyway, there we go. That's a problem for me to worry about when I can get my hands on the book, which is not for another week and a half. And that's assuming they don't sell out the pre-order. I'm going to be refreshing it all Saturday morning until it pops up and I'm going to grab it straight away. They'd better not sell out before I bought it. But anyway, that's that. Where else was I? I was trying to look at who else is in here. See, Peter's still in third. AFKR, that's Korean Guild. So there's only one Alliance Guild in the top 10. There's only one Alliance Guild in the top 20. This is awful. Absolutely dreadful. Scrubbusters 13th at the moment. They haven't done too well since going Horde. They should have stayed Alliance, but never mind. They went with the philosophy of everyone gets a trophy in order to make more people happy. Sorry, which trophy? Oh, in gear terms. But this, I don't know. I'm like a cracked record here. I just keep saying the same thing. I don't understand what good a high item level is for a casual player. I do not understand what they think the appeal is, because it's useless. You know, I now, every time I see in Guild someone asking for DPS for Mythic Plus, I don't join because I'm thinking to myself, my gear is now going to be too far behind. And yet my gear is still way more than I need to do solo stuff. I don't need this gear. See you later, Robert. They're getting on arguments quite weak. The engine is rather modern. The art style is fine. The only problem seems to be the systems, especially the current ones. Most of the systems no longer exist. Which particular systems are you thinking of? But anyway, I mean, that's the thing. You see, I don't think Blizzard's attitude towards what they think is rewarding for players is going to change. I don't think losing 2 million subscribers in like a few weeks is going to change that for them. Allegedly. So, and that's why I don't think the next expansion is going to be any better. Because, and it's a belief of mine, obviously it's an opinion, I think they fail to understand what motivates different groups of people, which means they're not motivating certain groups of people, and they don't show any signs of being aware of it and having learnt from that. So, of course, I believe they're going to make the same mistakes continually. I'd like to be pleasantly surprised, and this is why I say, you know, if you think about it, in a year's time, BFA will be done. The actual story will be done. It will be round about the right time for the, if it's along the same lines as BFA, for the alpha for Revenge of the Potato People to come out. At which point, you know, we'll get to see what that's looking like. And then over the next few months, we'll also get to see very intimately how Blizzard are approaching feedback. And if I just see history repeating itself, then I'll be done. That'll be it. Do I believe they're afraid of their players? I don't think afraid is the right word. I think they hold us in contempt, though, which might be a strong word to use, but I think that's it. I think, well, I know that certain ones of them, but I think just in general, they think we're idiots who don't know what we're talking about. And you'll hear games developers in different game studios saying the same thing. You know, oh, you're just players, you don't know what you're talking about. Never mind the fact that a lot of developers transition from being a player of a game to a paid developer overnight, because not all, but a lot of developers are employed because, I mean, Ian Hazakostas was one. He was a legal professional, I don't know, some sort of lawyer, and playing World of Warcraft, and then he was a games developer. So this idea that games developers will say, oh, players don't know anything, it's like, even if you weren't, even if you have technical degree level training in games design or computer programming or whatever the hell, you have colleagues who were just players and then developers the next day. So I don't understand that attitude. It's just arrogance, pure arrogance. Yes, the vast majority of players don't know what they're talking about. That is true. It is not true that players in general don't, because there will be some players who understand it perfectly well. You would think that losing so many subs would raise awareness that change needs to happen, but I guess not. No, again, I'm going to have to do... I've done this too often recently. I am aware of the fact I keep doing this. I'm going to use another Kitchen Nightmares example. So, there was a Kitchen Nightmares. Unfortunately, it's one of the US ones, which they're rubbish. The BBC ones are better. But anyway. So, Gordon Ramsay goes into this restaurant. And he tries the food and it's god-awful, as it usually is. Because at the end of the day, if the food wasn't god-awful, the restaurant probably, I'm not saying certainly, probably wouldn't be failing. So then he asks the manager, the restaurant manager, what she thinks the problem is. And she says, not enough customers. And he's like, he can't believe it. He says, why? And she's like, we don't. That was it. That was her appraisal of the situation. The problem wasn't that the restaurant was being poorly managed. It wasn't that the food was bad. It wasn't anything that she had power over, apparently. It was the fact there weren't enough. It was the customer's fault. And that's what it's like. You say, oh, you would think losing so many subs would change, that would make them rethink. Not if they don't blame themselves. If they think it's just a load of ignorant players who don't understand the pressures they're under or how difficult it is, and they're asking the impossible. If they've got that in their heads, they will never associate that loss of subs with anything they are doing. And as a result, they'll never accept that there's anything they can improve. So they won't improve because, you know, the first step to improvement, using made up words now, is to acknowledge that there's something you can change. Melt back the specs in the classes. I would love them to do that. I do not like this spec fantasy, which they say he lied. You know, in last January, he said they were going to move away. He acknowledged that this had happened during Legion and that they were going to move back away from it. And then that completely changed, assuming it wasn't just a lie at the time. Because he now acknowledges, yes, it's like we've got 36 different classes. But it shouldn't be. Absolutely ridiculous. You wonder if they'll ever... I mean, you know, they think players are asking for the impossible. They're asking the impossible of themselves by having any hope of balancing effectively 36 classes. No. I wonder if they'll ever implement the 3D things they spoke of for classes. Upgradable Libra for Pally, Poison Val. I mean, to be fair, that'll be an art department thing. They may or may not. That's not going to be anything that is going to affect the teams that, you know, that have the tricky jobs to do. I'm not saying the art team have it easy, but they always seem to manage, don't they? You think contempt is the right word. This expansion, the last year worth of feedback, have been very discouraging how they disregard the pinnacle of each class and spec. Well, yeah. So, you know. And the problem is when they do engage in feedback, they only see it as a PR exercise. They don't see it as a useful exercise. They see it purely in terms of smoothing our brows patting us on the head. They don't actually see it as a fruitful exchange of ideas. And that's another problem. You know, so when they do it, which is not often enough, they just see it as trying to convince us that what they're doing is great and we should be having loads of fun. Because at the end of the day, fun is the only metric they go by. Do I think that the lack of marketing WoW is also why the sub numbers are dropping as new players from younger generations don't know anything about it? No, I don't believe that. I think the new player experience is awful. I think it's had no serious consideration until recently. Every expansion, and that goes right back, every expansion has come out and they have given no thought to how to manage the new player experience. I mean, just in terms of something simple, when you create a new character, I'm sure we've all done this recently. Do you know what? I was thinking of making a brand new Paladin, Alliance Paladin, leveling that up on EU forum somewhere. But anyway, never mind that. When you start a new character, the storyline it does to introduce that race is no longer valid because it's from Cataclysm, isn't it? So, I think it even talks about Garrosh Hellscream as War Chief. I think even now, if you create a monk, I haven't actually done this, but I'm pretty sure if you create a monk, if you go Alliance, you'll have King Varian Rin doing a little cutscene with you. And if you go Horde, it'll be Garrosh Hellscream. Now, I would have no issue with that at all, because that's who was King and War Chief at the time, if everything else was in chronological order. But when you have 1 to 60 content taking place after 60 to 80 content, then at that point, I say no. The feedback issue is Blizzard-wide. The Overwatch team is the same way as the WoW team. See, again, it doesn't surprise me because the World of Warcraft team on its own cannot behave the way they are. There are senior managers above the level of individual games teams that have the authority to tell them to sort themselves out and stop being shitty to their customers. The fact that they don't do that, yes, it doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't know, but it doesn't surprise me if other teams within Blizzard are not doing the same thing. Because World of Warcraft doesn't exist in a bubble. It's part of a larger team with more senior managers. The fact that a player could in theory be spending 4 million gold on the exact same service, another could for 5 gold, is why I think they lied about spec and class restriction. In what way do you mean? Do you mean in terms of the Azeroth refits? That's a Pandaren thing. Did I say monk? I meant Pandaren in that case, sorry. I meant to say Pandaren. Why is there a delay on my chat here? Oh, there we go. It says they missed an opportunity to do a level squish this expansion. Well, did they? It says, but thinking about it, why not just give the option to new players to start the game as a war veteran starting at 70 or 80? That would work. Even that's not very far up, is it? But I think, I mean, there's pros and cons to it. You say they missed an opportunity to do the level squish. I'm not sure. See, the thing is, they obviously had technical problems with the item level and stat squish. And Ian Hazakostas did say, if you thought that was bad, you wait to see what would happen if we ever tried to do a level squish. And I know at BlizzCon he technically looked like he was opening the door on the possibility of a level squish. But given how he said it, I don't believe it's a genuine offer. But in terms of starting people higher up, if they were even considering that, I think allied racers could have done that. That would have been a good thing to do for allied racers. Instead of starting at level... I mean, what's the point of starting at level 20, for goodness sake? Seriously, what is the point of that? They easily could have had it So, because to get an allied race anyway, you have to have got a level cap character and have done a load of rep grinding. So there's no doubt about it, you're a veteran player if you even have access to any allied races. So they easily could have had allied races starting up from a much higher level. I'm not sure what level I'd have started it off at. I'd have been tempted to say more like 90. I don't know why though. But I'd only do that if they fully scaled all the zones. So that way you could still go do whatever zones you wanted to level up your remaining levels. But to me, the number of levels we have is a bigger problem for new players than it is veteran players. For veteran players, yes, it's boring. But for new players, it's just the number. You know, if it's they're not necessarily new to role-playing games. They may be familiar with role-playing games, and they may be familiar with the fact that in an MMO, you've got a leveling process to do, and then you get to do the end game. And they'll be looking at it and going, how many levels? And I've got to get 120 levels before I can even do the stuff that's advertised on the box. Whoa. Oh, respec costs 5 gold and each respec is double. Yeah. Do I think the money for the movie should have been just used for expansion development? I don't know how much money Blizzard got. Remember, the whole movie lost money. It made a loss. So I don't really know. It's not like they got a big pile of gold out of it. So no. World of Warcraft. You do know the World of Warcraft budget is only a few % of what it brings in. The vast majority of it's profit. They could, if they wanted, in theory, massively increase the budget and still make profit. But obviously, the shareholders wouldn't like that idea. They don't give a shit about the game as long as it makes money. They want their money. Although, of course, as we've observed in the last few months, a lot of those same investors decided to sell their shares pretty smartish because they didn't believe it was making them enough money. And we can all argue that if they increased the budget and got suitable people in charge of it, that we would get a better product, more people would play it, and because the budget is such a small proportion of the overall profits, the profits would increase out of proportion to the extra budget. We can argue that till we're blue in the face, but we don't get to make that decision. So we will never be proved right or wrong. It definitely makes no sense to have allied races go through Wrath, Cat and Mop story. Well, for me, well, no, it doesn't from that point of view. But for me, it doesn't. I don't understand why you start at level 20, unless it's just literally so you can have a mount straight away. Because I don't understand why 20. 1 to 20 is the quickest 20 levels you'll ever get in this game, of course. You know, it's compared to the amount of time you'd spend leveling altogether, it's a drop in the ocean. Problem with the new player experience is that it seems designed for twinks. It's no longer a... I don't think it's designed for anyone. That's the problem. It's not designed. It's no longer a journey. It's certainly not a journey or a vital part of the game at all. I don't think you even learn enough about playing your class, but that, you know, you do learn something of that. You spend long enough practicing anyway. But I don't think you learn anything else. I've said this before. I did a video yesterday, didn't I? I don't think you learn about the lore of the game. I mean, I was saying yesterday, you've got, you know, 1 to 60 content now has quite a lot of lore. Well, no, it's got quite a lot of quests based on old gods and Neltharion. And yet I don't believe that a new player, they've leveled through that content. If I were to ask them questions about old gods and Neltharion, I bet you they wouldn't know very much at all, if anything. I don't think it prepares them. Let's hire Greg Street back. No, he's like, the things he says about the relationship, although he might be better, he still has that same attitude about players, that you need patting on the head. He just has the attitude he shouldn't call us stupid. But he still thinks of us as stupid. One reason you're upset with WoW, it's obvious the game... Oops, lost it. Makes so much money, so it's inexcusable for the quality to be going downhill. But yeah, it's all about squeezing out those profits. The people who make these decisions are not the people who make the game. They get their budget, and that's it. They don't negotiate their budget. Allied races should be treated as heroic races, like classes, where they start at higher levels. I mean that would be one way to deal with the issue. Maybe they feel that, do you know, because I can think how Blizzard mindset would work. Blizzard, and they'd be right on this, by the way. I'm not saying it's a good enough reason not to do it. They'd be thinking to themselves, but if we do that, then people will only roll the allied races, and you'll get a massive... You'll suddenly get most level cap characters being allied races and not the traditional races. That'll be how their mind's thinking on it. Possibly. And they would be right on that, of course. Do I think that a leveling squish would be worse as 1 to 60? Leveling will be useless as the quests aren't in chronological order. The quests in 1 to 60 are a mess anyway. They're a complete mess. It's ironic. They thought the quests were a mess before and they tidied it up, but they didn't. They made a mess of it. There's no continuity. Your buddy did want to... So anyway, I mean, a level squish... They can't just do a level squish and leave it at that. What they really need to do is have a level squish with a level cap that doesn't change each expansion. And if they want a Paragon leveling system, do that. I don't even think it needs that. Your buddy didn't want to come, and that should be account wide. Didn't want to come because grinding 120 level to play with us was demoralising. But it is. I mean, as I say, I've been thinking of like leveling some more characters from level 1. I've got plenty of characters to level from 110. And I just think I'll start it. I'll never see it through. New races come with 1 to 20 zones. Allied races just allow Blizz to skip making those zones. Well, they don't have to skip making the zones. Like, you have a scenario anyway to unlock the allied races. You could easily then start them in somewhere else. And I know sometimes it's tricky, because although the Lightforged Draenei you could put with the normal Draenei, that'd be fine. The High Mountain Tauren you could put with the actual Tauren in Mulgore. But then you think, well, where would you put Void Elves? You know, so you can understand it from that point of view. But then that's just more, you know, it's not insoluble. You could just put them somewhere. Hi, Chain. Probably sell even more race change as well. Yes, possibly. You've played since MOP and you've never leveled a toon from level 1 to max. What, have you always boosted them? Do you think each expansion should be targeted at leveling characters from 1 to 60 and allow a time travel mechanic to allow players to experience older events returning this? Well, they have time travel mechanics for certain zones. And I'm never in favour of completely removing any content. If they want to update a zone, they should do what they've already done with some zones, but not enough, which is to layer it over and use a bronze dragon to get you back and forth. Same with dungeons. If you want to change a dungeon, bronze dragon. Or a different entrance in, like with Karazhan. What I didn't appreciate was them removing the old style Eastern Plaguelands, which I used to really love, to say nothing of Duskwood, and Scholarmance in particular. Nor did I like the new Upper Blackrock Spire. And even if I did like some of them, like, I don't mind the new Scholarmance. It's not as good. But it's the fact that they got rid of the other one. They could have had both. So, but I don't think the game ever really was a sandbox, if I'm honest. And I don't think it would return it to that by doing that. But I think leveling should have stopped a long time ago. If they wanted an alternate progression system, I mean, I think item level is enough. But if they want a Paragon leveling system as well that is account bound, then that's okay. So the idea is, like in ESO, for example, you have 50 levels. You get to level 50 on a character, but then you get your champion levels. But they're account bound. So when you level a new character now, when it gets to level 50, it's exactly the same level of progression as a character you made 3 years ago and have been playing for the last 3 years. It obviously won't have as good gear, but you know that level will be the same. You don't have to keep adding on levels each expansion. There's no need for it. And I don't understand what they think it brings them. You hated that they took away basically all the old dungeons. Yes, I do. You miss Old Scholar, Scarlet Monastery, oh indeed. Shadowfang. Yeah, I was never too sure about See, now actually, I will say this. I think Shadowfang Keep is better than the original, but I still didn't want them to remove the original. That's how I would look at that. Apart from anything else, the old Shadowfang Keep was a bit weird. The last boss. He had like an Uzi. You also missed... I missed the old vanilla zones and quests though. I agree with... I definitely missed those. You know, it was much more fun. There was much more exploration there. More character boost is what it brings them. I don't think it's worth it. I think players quit this game because of quite a lot of frustration. And it's supposed to be for fun. You'll put up with a certain level of frustration if you're a serious player and you get something out of playing the hardcore version of the game, yes. But I think for other people, you know, we won't. Wish they'd make a universal time walking mode that you can toggle on, but with Classic coming, they wouldn't know. Adding level does nothing for the game, even hurts it. It's just bigger numbers for better marketing. Look, we have 120 levels. I don't even think that's a marketing plus. I think that's really bad. I think that makes it look worrying. And if they think it's a draw, I think they're sadly mistaken. It's the opposite. Maybe they should add a new leveling scenario based on the current story for level 1+. I think... Evening, Sean. I mean, they've said that they're putting thought into it and it's a long-term project. So it sounds like they're taking it seriously. But by the time it arrives, I mean, we don't even know what it is. We don't even know what they're thinking of. They haven't even identified what they see as the problems. So I can't possibly even guess what they're going to do. But whatever it is may well come too late. But who knows? We'll see. You have a friend who has paid for 4 boosts since BFA launched. You already got one with BFA, so he's had 5 boosted characters. Gordon Bennett. I think your friend may be one of the very few people who are like that, though. I'm not sure too many people will have boosted 5 characters already in BFA. At least now Classic and Current will be 2 different games if they can afford to finish it. Yes. I still don't think that a lot of people that play retail are going to be that happy with Classic though. I think it's for a different audience. And an audience that I'm not sure are going to pay for a subscription for it. We'll just have to wait and see on that. I don't know. People like me that have been playing since release. You hate the current state of the game, but you've given my life to it, so you have no choice but to play and if it gets better. Well, I think this is the the velvet the velvet handcuffs that people have been placed in. The fact that you've invested so much in the game. And if a new game launched like this, you wouldn't play it. Yes. I mean, it's Seems they again. It was not a sandbox. It was never a sandbox. It wasn't as on rails as it is now. I mean, it's always been a theme park game, but it's whereas you used to be allowed to wander around the theme park. Now you're on a guided tour. That's how it is now. But because the thing is, where they've made changes as well, a lot of the changes, not all, but a lot of the changes, although they took away something that you'd rather not lose, they were all for good benefits. The change to the talent system had good, sensible reasoning. The change to, giving you mounts earlier on, good reasoning. But that took away something from the game. The looking for dungeon, which they were developing through TBC and through Wrath before it was perfected in Cataclysm. But that took something from the game as well. Giving us more abilities had sensible use, but that took something from the game, and then taking away those abilities. Again, there was some reason to it, but again, it took something away. Everything they do seems to be a double-edged sword. I feel sorry for them sometimes, but then sometimes they just do stupid things, and then I lose all my sympathy. Your personal favourite levelling was in Diablo 2. There was a max level, but it took a long time to get there, and a character that was even 15 levels under max was still very powerful. So I've never played that. So if you boosted 10 tombs, that would be weird. Yes, that would be weird. You were having a terrible time at launch. You found a new guild and some friends and having a blast raiding battle for dazar'alor. Good, good. Everyone likes to kill gnomes when it comes down to it. No one will consider this raid a wasted opportunity. In your opinion, who really wants to play WoW Classic for the old experience already does it? I mean, I don't, because I don't agree with private servers. They are stealing. But I don't think it's acceptable that Blizzard denied people they shouldn't have got rid of it from the game. Obviously, you wouldn't if they hadn't got rid of it. It's not like you'd be able to level up and get the classic experience because the classes would all be different and races and stuff like that. But at least if the content was still in the game, if they still had the 1 to 60 content on all the quests and all the dungeons and all the raids, I wouldn't give a shit about Classic WoW coming out, because as far as I'd be concerned, what I will want to play it for will already be in the game and would never have left it. Because it's not like I'm looking forward to just auto-attacking mobs to death. It's not like I'm looking forward to, spending hours getting in to do one dungeon, if I even bother to do that. None of that will be bringing back pleasant memories. I'll just be playing it to wander around the old zones again. They need to bring back best in slot. Make gear so you know the name of the piece of gear and it's memorable. I think, to be fair though, even if they got rid of Titan Forging, after 14 years, it must be quite tricky to think of impressive names for gear. Surely they've all gone. It would not surprise me in the slightest if, for example, they completely gave up let's say next raid, and we had loot like the Boots of Awesomeness, or the Jacket of Reasonable Comfort. Because I'd have lost the thread by now. There's so many names of items you've had to come up with. I would just lose it. Why do I think they come up with excuses for not putting something in the game the majority of the community is screaming for, like PvP vendors, for instance, saying it'll be too confusing? I really couldn't tell you, because it seems to me to be a little dim. But I know that they're not dim, so there is some other reason, and I honestly do not know what it is. It's possibly when they use phrases like it'll be too confusing for us, it's like they think that we're too dim. Now I have to say, you know, playing an MMO is not usually something that attracts an awful lot of very dim people. So I really don't know where they get this from. Hi, Sane. You hope they give back marks of honour in World Quest. Sounds like a PvP thing to me. Spamming flash of light. Oh, yeah, of course. Stand in a good... The skill of being a paladin then healing was not, you know, the correct use of your spells, because there's very little to do for that. Although the correct use of different ranks of them was a bit. It was really about awareness, because you couldn't just hot people and there's no AoE heals or anything like that for a paladin. So you had to know, you had to triage basically. It was triaging. You know, it wasn't about who's taking the most damage. It's who's about to take the damage and therefore is highest priority on this. You know, because all you have to do as a healer is stop people dying. So it was very much about that. If you were on tank healing, that was the most... Tank healing is what you gave to a paladin player who didn't have much brains. And that applied for TBC as much as vanilla. Because all they had to do was stand in a spot and spam heal the tank. That was it. So you gave it to the person who had decent gear, because, you know, they've been in the guild for a bit, and but had no brains. So you couldn't trust them to heal the raid, so you got them to heal the tank instead. And they'd be happy as Larry, because it used to be, in vanilla at any rate, you know, if you were the tank healer, that was like status in a raid guild. Even though for a paladin, it was mind-numbingly boring. You were far better off putting your best paladins on the raid. Anyway, thank you, Master VV. I shall attempt to keep up the work. It's getting trickier, though, I have to say. What's sad is since you've got no intention of returning to Modern WoW, Classic actually looks less appealing to me because you would be subbing just for it. To be fair, it depends how long you're going to spend on it, though. You've got to think of it this way. Any MMO sub is, if you think about other hobbies you can have and the time you'd spend on them, it's a bit of a bargain, an MMO sub. Really. It's not a lot of money for the amount of time you get out of it. So I wouldn't worry about that. If you want to play Classic WoW and you're going to play it, I mean, you wouldn't have to play it for that much of a week, would you? For the equivalent of, like, what must it be? No more than $3 a week, surely. Or was it? Maybe $3 or $4 a week, let's say. I can't remember how much it would be in America. Yeah, that's got to be a bit of a bargain, hasn't it? They had them in PvP World Quest zones in Legion. It was great. You found them on all characters and got some awesome mogs. Now they're all gone. Oh. Well, what I wasn't happy about is to get my rank 2s of certain things for professions that I need some PvP marks. Where am I going to get them from? You hope Blizzard comes up with a way to make right-click report feature. If that comes to Classic, you'll feel really bad. I don't... Do you mean, like, ganging up on someone to get them banned from the game? Obviously, that hit the news again recently, didn't it? With Savix getting banned. Although I don't know whether it was warranted or not. I think it's generally accepted that it was not. I don't think so. I think the idea of Classic WoW is that it's supposed to be very community. The community behaviour is supposed to be more community driven. So I don't think they'd put the reporting feature in, other than reporting people for gold selling activities or something like that. Maybe. Even then, I'm not sure. In my mind, is a mecha gnome equally as bad as a gnome? Right. If you just say the word mecha gnome, the answer is no, because mechanical gnomes are fine. Blingtron fine, Jeeves fine. My issue is, when you look at some of the models for these so-called mecha gnomes, they appear to be quite fleshy. So I'm not really sure how mechanized the mecha gnomes in 8.2 are realistically going to be. You were often the tank healer. Seems like you're in the no-brain club. I'm sorry, that's just the way it was back then. I mean, you know, they tried putting me in there. In fact, you can still see my first ever Kel'Thas kill. I was put on tank healing, and I did nothing on that fight. It was so boring, right? Whereas, oh no, other way around. Sorry, no. The one I've actually got on video is where I was raid healing. Different, no. I'm thinking of the second kill. Right, raid healing, and it was a smooth kill. That's right, that's the one I recorded. The one I wish I'd recorded was the following week when we killed it the second time. That, almost everyone was dead. That's because they put me on tank healing. So I was just healing the tanks. Obviously, you still throw out heals elsewhere when you can, but if you're healing the tank, you've really got to keep them up. You haven't really got time to go healing other people. And then, in phase 4, people started dying. Healers started dying. I don't even know how a healer dies on the Kel'Thas fight. It blows my mind how it's possible to die as a healer. But they were. And when it was on about 21% left, and we'd been wiping all night, I was not about to wipe again. I was the only healer left. At that point, I had to then triage. I had to keep the tank alive, and I had to keep other people alive. Obviously, I sacrificed the gnomes, right? That was an easy decision. And we eventually ended up just about killing it, with me like the only healer left. Out of 6 healers starting from 21%. That makes it more fun. There's footage of RBG teams purposely mass reporting other teams' healers. Yeah, see, when you get something like that happening, you've got to say that the risk of abuse outweighs what they see as the benefits of antisocial behaviour that the players then have little choice to deal with. And I think you just have to, at the very least, remove it from certain types of content. If it's a particular problem in arenas or well, I suppose RBGs can't really work in arenas, I guess. Or it could on 5v5, does it? But you could at least remove it from RBGs, couldn't you? Get rid of it from RBGs. If it's a particular problem there. When there is not a cash shop, you get all content with the occasional expansion, and with your subscription, an MMO is one of the cheapest hobbies you can have. I mean, even if there is a cash shop, as long as it's cosmetic, you don't really need it, then yes, it's absolutely one of the cheapest hobbies you can get. They look like cyborg gnomes. They've got flesh on them. It's not good enough. And it's the up here which has the flesh, which implies they've got something soft and mushy between their ears. Not acceptable. You leveled as a holy paladin in vanilla. What on earth possessed you to do that? What was going through your head? You didn't even need to be holy to heal. I was healing through Molten Core. I didn't heal until I had 5 pieces of tier 2. I didn't spec holy. I was healing, but I was healing as Ret until literally when I got my 5-piece tier 2, then I went, right, it's now worth heal. Not because of the 5 pieces I remember. I can't remember now. I think it may just been I had enough spell crit for me to think it was worthwhile now. And you got an extra 5% by going holy anyway. I didn't need to use bandages. I mean, you had to take them as a raider. Having bandages was like, you know, a requirement. The only time I ever used them in a raid fight was on Illidan. I've got that still. That's still on the channel, my Illidan kill. Because there were certain times when you had to spread out. And I used to just hide in a corner when he went in his demon phase. And I used to just bandage people around me. Between the splash damage thing. But no, you could heal perfectly well as a Ret. No problem at all. Early on. Later on, more of a problem, granted. But earlier on, until you get enough spell crit, it's absolutely pointless being holy. I mean, yes, you get an extra 5% crit by being holy. But the other thing is, especially Molten Core and even Blackwing Lair, you didn't need, like, if you had a balanced group, 8 classes, 5 of each class, that means 5 priests, 5 druids, 5 paladins. You often didn't need 15 healers. So you needed a bit of DPS as well. So you go ret. I mean, to start with, you had to go ret anyway, because Blessing of Kings was at the bottom of the ret tree. So you needed some rets in there anyway. But there you go. But no, God, leveling. The people that leveled as either a tank or a healer defy logic, because you could both tank and heal, leveling up with any spec, and it only cost you something like 10 silver to begin with to respec at the level cap anyway. So, yeah, I think that was a mistake. Best in slot, remove Titan Forge and have something like Archive of the Titans that grows each week to help people complete the raid. They won't do it. Titan Forge does what they want it to do. They are not going to remove it. You was told the guild needed a holy paladin, so you leveled one as it took ages. It's mad. Mad. You'd even if they wanted a holy paladin, you would level as ret. And then just talent change when you got to level cap. Cost nothing. First one. Mecha Gnome are going to be augmented cyborgs, thus based off a fleshy gnome, and therefore an abomination. You enjoyed Gertog Blood Boil in Black Temple? That was a boring fight. I mean, it wasn't a bad fight. There was, but the main source of interest is in counting to 3. 1, 2, 3, back. 1, 2, 3, forward. Did I hear the new reporting system has been used to disconnect healers in Battlegrounds? It's not really a new reporting system as such, but I had heard that people have been using this to abuse it. People were just talking about it, yes. And my suggestion would be to disable it in RBGs or anywhere where it's a particular problem. I don't actually see that you need that reporting feature in RBGs anyway. I really don't. You didn't know at the time? No. I hope you've learnt that lesson. I mean, I'm thinking if I do play Classic WoW, well, I will play Classic WoW, you know, I'll have 2 EU accounts. So, and I tried this out when we got to play it at BlizzCon. I'm very likely to level 2 characters at once, just have one on follow. You know, and switch with it. It'll be slower than leveling one character, but a lot quicker than leveling 2 separately. Obviously, you can't do that for dungeons. You'll have to do a dungeon with one and then the other. Because I probably would want to do dungeons at some point. It could run into trouble. I'd have to alternate on the dungeons. I don't know. I've not thought it through sufficiently. I would at least start levelling them together. But yeah, it's just one of these things. I just don't think Blizzard reacts. I mean, sometimes they act quickly. They don't think things through. Something like that, I really don't see why they can't just remove it from RG. What's going to be the problem if it's removed from RBGs? You've been doing leveling runs private servers. It's worrying since they might change XP values and dungeon XP. No, they won't. Why would they? It makes no sense for Blizzard to do that. They'll keep it as it was. People want the classic experience. They're not going to get it. But Blizzard, there's no benefits to Blizzard in changing the XP required from anything. Will I play Classic WoW if tokens are introduced? They won't introduce tokens. It won't make the game pay to win. Because, especially in vanilla, there wasn't really anything to buy that would make you stronger. Once you got into raiding. You know. It's not like now, where raids drop. You know, any BOEs you got in raids then were just world drops. They weren't raid drops. So no, it wouldn't. It would be of no value. But they wouldn't do it anyway. There's no way they would do that. Apart from anything else, you were rich if you had 1,000 gold in vanilla. Yes, some people had more than that. But if you had 1,000 gold, you were rich. Imagine buying a WoW token for 170,000 gold. No. If you get reported by 5 more people, yes, I know you get disconnected. Yeah, I know. And yeah, where it's been abused, they should just disable it. Took you 95 hours to get to 60. I can beat that. I don't measure it in hours. I measure it... Okay, or you're talking about on the private server. I measure it in days, right? In vanilla, my original Paladin took 21 game days. Now, that's not because it took that long to level a character then. That is because I spent most of my time in Ironforge selling enchants because I insisted on leveling up my professions at the same rate as I was leveling up my character. This turned out to be a mistake. But it's a mistake I make every time I play an MMO, so maybe it's just masochism. There are 2 characters you want to play in Classic, a Shockadin and a melee hunter. No. You made a rogue back in vanilla, and you remember Shockadins were freaking gods, especially with Zul'Gurub trinkets. For a very brief period, and then that was it. Obviously, for PvP purposes, yes, they were very difficult to kill as well. Although if you stuck a Fell Hunter on them, that was annoying as anyone else. I mean, yes, you've got, like, you could fear, technically, but it had a cast time, I think. What do I think of Blizzard removing the Community Manager program in favour of new algorithms to monitor what the community can do and those being abused in Classic to remove players you don't like? What, in Classic? I hadn't heard anything like that being done in Classic. So I don't know about that. You only want to play Classic if you know they're going to release Burning Crusade. I don't think they will. They didn't want to release Classic. It was, they eventually conceded to it. Or potentially someone else more senior who did want it got there. I don't really see the same clamouring for TBC. I know there are people who would want it, but I don't really see as many... I'm not saying it never would come, but I don't see that there's a real push for it. Hi, Dickfish. I have been feeling better, sort of. What's my projected outcome of this expansion? More players coming back or more leaving due to Blizz causing issues? I think that in a year's time, they will yet again announce the pre-orders for the next expansion. They will put something in it that means, oh, if you get it, you could get this thing now. And a load of suckers will get it. And then the whole hideous cycle will continue. That's what I think. I think there's a real community now of former WoW players who will return for the start of an expansion and then quit almost immediately. And I think they'll do it again and again and again. And I'm not saying they're silly for doing it. You know, many of them may even know that they're not going to play it for more than a month or two. At the end of the day, maybe they're the sort of people who buy games anyway and spend a couple of months playing it. And as far as they're concerned, the price of a game for a couple of months is all right. And maybe they're happy to pay the price of an expansion for a couple of months or 1 month. So I do think more players will come back because I think they'll hype the next expansion. But some won't. Obviously, once you lose some players, you will always lose some of them permanently. But I can also see more people leaving if they don't... I don't know, or do I? Maybe I don't. The thing is, I don't see BFA getting worse than it is now. So I think the people who've left, who weren't happy with it, have left. There may be a small number of people who are thinking, oh, I'm going to leave if it doesn't get better. But it is getting better. So it may be okay. It may be stable now. But yeah, they'll sell loads of copies again next expansion. And then a load of players will leave. We will see. Do I think WoW will go free to play in favour of a Fortnite microtransaction model? Never say never. I don't believe Blizzard wants to do that. But it may not be entirely Blizzard's decision if it doesn't make as much money as they want it to make. Oh, you've been starting playing ESO and you love it. Good, good. It is very, very nice as a casual. There are some things maybe at level cap, just in terms of where you have to play your class, that may or may not meet with your approval. But the actual casual content is excellent. And yeah, you've got to try out, if you haven't already, the big old PvP area. Massive it is. And that's quite a lot of fun. Even with strangers. It's one of the few things in MMO I will pug quite happily. You love how does Fortnite do its cash shop then? Because I'm okay with the way ESO does its cash shop, apart from loot boxes. I'm not totally against the way Star Wars: The Old Republic does it, but they do take the piss a little bit. Oh, have you done and Nightblade then? Because you don't have to do that as well. That's the thing with ESO. Like, you look at the classes, and there's another class coming out, of course. And you've got the Templar, where you think to yourself, well, it could be tanky or healy. You look at the Dragon Knight, you think, well, that's like a tanky. You look at the Sorcerer, oh, range DPS. You look at the Nightblade, melee DPS. But actually, they can be any role. It's very, very flexible. And it's not just, it can be any role, but there are some ones that are, you know, often the best tanks are ones that you wouldn't think are the most obvious. Like, I know when ESO first came out, I don't know whether this is still a thing, you would use a Dragon Knight as a tank, but you would put him in light armour. Which sounded, and give them a fire staff, which sounded really weird, but it worked. I wonder where Limit are at the moment. Oh, Method have tweeted up a video of their nerd screams when they I keep saying killed Jaina. It's not a kill really, is it? It's a persuading her not to outstay her welcome. Has some very crazy builds. Nixium had a rant about that also. Why would he rant about flexibility in classes? Sounds like a mad thing to get annoyed about. Fortnite allows you to buy a few cosmetic, but it puts them on a timer to create the feel of artificial scarcity, but they return after a few weeks. Oh, yeah. I don't mind the scarcity aspect. I know they're trying to get you. It's like a salesman going, oh, there's this brilliant offer, but it's only on for the next 2 minutes. There is an element of that. But at the same time, as long as it's cosmetic, and it's not costing you a fortune, I'm okay with that. You don't like ESO, it's too boring for you. That's like close to sacrilege. But you think it nails class fantasy aspect that Blizzard is on about. You could literally play the character you had in your head. Well, yeah, you can. It's very, very flexible. Dragon Knights are still the best tanks due to their class toolkit, but That only matters for the top 1%. Well, that's exactly it, you see. It's the absolute top min-maxers. For everyone else, you can do whatever as anything. You know, you try saying in World of Warcraft that you want to be a mage, but you also want to be a tank. You'll be sat in the corner facing the wall. And anyone can heal, and anyone can DPS as ranged or melee. Use any weapon, whatever you want. He wasn't angry about it. He praised it. Oh, I'm going to say, good. But he also said it can be optimized very well. Any game can be. You cannot come up with a game. This is what annoyed me about Blizzard for the longest time, when they kept insisting that, like with talents, you can choose whichever one you want. And then when they conceded that you actually can't, they kept saying, but it's their aim to make it so you can choose whichever one you just prefer. No. Certain ones are going to be better in different situations. The best you can ever hope for is that at some point in the game, each talent will have a use. You know, in other words, not to have any dead talents. Beyond that, it's not for min-maxing a matter of personal choice. It's a matter of what is best for this scenario. So that will always be the case. There's always going to be a mathematical best thing to do. As long as it's only the sort of thing that needs to be paid attention to by the very top players, that is not an issue, because they don't mind doing that anyway. Fortnite has a battle pass, or is this like a subscription? Pay $10 or so, and for like the next 90 days you level it up and get skins, etc. You can also earn currency to buy the next battle pass thing for free. ESO has choice in your eyes. WoW has the illusion of choice. I don't think it even has the illusion of choice. It might for a new player. I feel sorry for a new player who wants to play semi-seriously, like to do proper group content. So they play a particular class because it says, oh, they can do this. And then they get up there and they find it's the last class you would ever want in that role. So I feel sorry for them for that. You like how ESO allows you to gain unique skills and skill lines through reading books in dungeons and learning skills from guilds and unique experience. It makes it feel like the world has an impact on you. Yeah, it does. They have a lot of skill lines and attached to like guilds and stuff like that, certainly, yeah. Most of which I can't be bothered with, but it does have them for those who are interested, absolutely. Like, for example, if you what I particularly like is when you engage in like sneakery and skullduggery, your ledger domain skill increases, which allows you to get extra skills for sneakery and skullduggery. Breaking into houses and stuff like that. That'd be really good. That's something you don't have in WoW. Breaking into someone's house. Having to pick the lock and break in. And then sneak around and avoid guards inside and stuff like that. Jumping into baskets when they might see you. Your newly joined guild exploded yesterday in the new raid. Third one down this experiment. What, already? It's only been out a week. What was the problem now? Oh, Connor, you say about world changes after you complete quests, making you feel like you have an impact on the world as well. I mean, it sort of does in WoW. I think they tried to turn it down. They did have major changes during Wrath and Mop. I mean, I suppose Cataclysm maybe as well. I can't remember. Didn't play it that much. But certainly in Wrath and Mop, there were major changes at times. The problem was that was a bit of an arsehole when you were trying to be with someone else who wasn't at the same phase as you. So I think they reined it in a little. They've improved it. They've improved the technology. I think they've also reined it in a little bit. How does a guild, a raiding guild, decide to like self-destruct 1 week into a raid? Hi, Dimitri. We've sort of covered Methods World first, in so much as I can do, given that I haven't watched it yet. You guess Limit's gamble with guild faction change didn't pay off. It didn't do him any harm, did it? How could it have done him any harm? And it wasn't, you know, at the end of the day. I don't know. Maybe it did. Who knows? This is the problem when it's actually a tight race like this. You know, they had a decision to make in Uldir. They chose not to re-clear when maybe they should have done. It was an impossible call to make. And this time, same sort of thing, except this time they did start to re-clear. It's just one of those things. You make a decision. Maybe it turns out to be the right one. Maybe it doesn't. And you can't... I don't know that you'd say it was a... Well, it is $1,000 richer. Yeah. Yeah. I mean... it was not an unreason... It was not an... it's not like you would criticise the decision for doing it. Doesn't mean to say they'd have got world first if they hadn't done that. It was good they never nerfed Jaina. You're having a laugh, aren't you? They kept buggering about with Jaina all week. Even today, they accidentally buffed her and then had to change her back. The Guildmaster was an asshat. I've never understood that term. Is that an American term? And they got into some very heavy arguments, and you realise you got onto a sinking ship without realising. Well, what arguments? There's drama here that you are not sharing. What arguments? What do I think of the new necromancer class in ESO? Being illegal to use in the game world. Hang on a minute, what? Oh, is the what? Hang on, I need to read up on this. Is the necromancer not welcome in certain areas? Do you mean I'm going to have a bounty on me every time I stick my head up in a guarded area? I need to read up on this then. I know nothing about it other than it's going to be a thing. I haven't actually read up on it. I'm going to have to do that. I also need to pre-order the expansion. Although I don't need to pre-order it just now. Because there's no physical copy of the new expansion, is there? Oh, don't use the necro skills in town. I don't use any skills in town. I once accidentally... when I changed my Templar from using a bow and sword to a staff, I accidentally clicked on it and hit an innocent, and then a guard beat me up and demanded I pay a bounty on myself. So I don't use any abilities in towns. Warlocks sort of felt that way in vanilla. Well, yeah, it's because they were underground. In both Orgrimmar and Stormwind, they were underground. In Ironforge, they weren't underground. Well, everything was underground, I suppose. But they were in a darkened little bit, along with the rogues. Best place to shove the gnomes, in my opinion. Can't remember where they were. Where were they in Danasus? No, they wouldn't have had them in Danasus, would they? Would have just been those two cities, wouldn't it? So yeah, they were shoved underground. Quite liked the pub that the Warlocks were in Stormwind, the Slaughtered Lamb. Not exactly hiding their location, was it? If you're not mistaken, Necromancer and ASO will trigger guards if they use their magic in towns. Well, that's easy enough. Just don't use magic. I don't use magic in towns anyway, on any character. It's asking for trouble. You might hit someone. Can't criticise Limit's decisions since they have decided to go full ham on this world first race. But it was still a gamble. Everything's a gamble. I mean, if you give someone a decision on what to do, it's a gamble. Like, this is why I feel a little bit sorry for Limit. Yes, they get a head start, but then they've got that difficult decision. If it's still not dead in the second reset, do you re-clear? They didn't in Uldir, and they did in this one. And who knows whether they got the decisions the wrong way round or not. I don't know. You know, it's easy to say that in hindsight, but it's an horrible decision to have to make. And you say it's a gamble because other guilds decided not to do a similar thing. Yeah, but this is like Formula 1, isn't it? It's like Formula 1, and let's say a bit of rain comes in, and the teams go in for their slicks, but then a driver goes, I reckon I can manage on this, and I reckon it's going to be short-lived. Or the driver won't, their team will. And they go, I'm going to stay on these tyres. And then it dries out, And then all those drivers on slicks have to come back in and get their intermediates back on or something. And the driver that decided to tough it out, they're away. So, you know, you don't just go with what everyone else is doing. In fact, if you want to, like, push yourself that bit further, you have to do what other people are not doing. It just doesn't always work out. You're hoping to see them or Exorcist for World Second. Exorcist, all right, they're not, you know, they were really disappointed in Aldia. They disappointed themselves. They're not exactly lighting it on fire this time. I mean, fourth. I'm not sure that they're in for getting the World Second at the moment, if I'm honest. Oh dear. The raid was only taking teams 1 or 2 days to reach Jaina, then every guild was having trouble. Yeah, that was what I was saying at the start of the video. I hated that about it. The fact that you had like 24 guilds on Jaina before anyone killed it. That's just wrong. You know, the fact that you were racing to Jaina. Limit, correct me if I'm wrong, Limit were on Jaina, I think, pretty much before Method even got to start, didn't they? Or very close to it anyway. If they had, they'd only just started. I think Method may have actually started when they killed Jaina. Sorry, when they got to Jaina. But the other problem with that as well is that people kept trying to come up with another little meme for that. You know, like it was with Limit, first to the moon, first to Cahoon. People were trying to think of a similar one for Jaina. And the only one anyone came up with was very rude. So that was disappointing. It'd been better if someone else had got there first. Even though I actually wanted Limit to get the world first this time round. So hold on, let's have a look here. Where am I going? The main drama was about your guild master going all racist, calling your healers descendants of the undead monkey. And half the guild left after he had this huge rant, only got worse. Proceeded to speak about how it's not the good old days and how we are all wastes of space. You'd expect that of you, unfortunately, something. Oh, they're sometimes funny, those sort of guild leaders, as long as it's not your own. My response in that situation, of course, is always to give a load of shit back. You were talking about their guild faction change. Yeah, I know, I understand that, I get that. But what I mean is, that was still could have paid off for them. You know, it could have been the thing that paid off for them and everyone else wishes they'd done it. The reclear doesn't always, I mean, as I say, there's pros and cons to it. For most guilds, a reclear always makes sense. I do not understand guilds in general who extend. The only justification you ever have for extending is you are going to kill it in that reset. If you don't kill it that reset, you made a bad decision. Obviously, when you're talking about World First Guild, if they choose to extend, they are still going to kill it that reset. It's just, is it quicker to re-clear and then kill the boss than it is to just carry on killing the boss? That's the thing, and it's impossible to say. Impossible. So you just have to flip a coin, ultimately. They had 1 day full advantage on Jaina before Method. No, they didn't. They had a head start. It's not a full day because when does the North American reset happen? I can't remember, but it's nowhere near a full day. It is a significant period of time. And also bear in mind there may be bugs when it comes out in North America that have to be fixed. But yeah. Back in your day, we never had LFR. No, we didn't. We didn't have LFR. We didn't have different difficulties. If you wanted to see a boss die, you killed it on the only difficulty that existed, or you watched it on YouTube. Did we have YouTube then? I think we had YouTube. But, oh yeah, that's right. I didn't actually upload my videos to YouTube. I uploaded them somewhere else, which is why I've now lost most of them. Because they didn't retain them. Do I think that WoW focuses too much on endgame content? The next expansion will focus on more casual content. It's not that I think they focus too much. I think they can do... I think they see content as the sort of stuff that can be done for both. They come up with content that will satisfy everyone from the hardcore down to the very casual, but it doesn't. So I do think they should consciously separate out those bits of content. But they're not going to. I don't try and waste my time thinking of things that I know they're not going to do, unless it's definitely the thing to do. But I can't say in this situation it would definitely work, because you can't say that until you've seen it trialed. 6 hours was it, Dreadthane? There you go. So it's not the end of the world. I thought it was more than that, though. But anyway, it's certainly not a day. YouTube was 2006. All right, can't have been YouTube then. Must have been elsewhere. Where did I watch videos then? You're in vanilla. I used to put them on a video sharing site, but I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember where I used to find WoW videos. Not that I watched a lot of them, but every now and then, somewhat, you know, a kill video, you know, you would watch. The one I have stuck in my head is someone killing. It was a decent guild. Can't remember who it was now. Killing Cthulhu, and the only reason I remember it is because it had the song Crazy going in the background. Actually, there's different songs called Crazy. Anyway. Check the time limit. Hold on. Limit on day 1, kill 7 out of 9, followed 8 out of 9 shortly after, while method was stuck on Mecha Talk. Limit had at least 16 hours, pretty much a full gaming day. No, not these people. These people raid 24 hours a day. Anyway, they had a head start. I'm not denying that. Am I putting my Stormcast army on hold now in favour of Skaven? Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, I was only just saying earlier this week, or was it last week? Last week, to the gaming group, I've been so good. I'm not buying models until I've painted the ones I've got. That's all out the window now. I did not know they were bringing out Skaven so soon. You doubt that WoW will fix the leveling issue. Your optimism in Blizzard making good games like these two isn't a thing anymore. They used to wait until it was ready. It was almost a meme. It was more than just a meme. It was absolutely a meme. I mean, the soon TM was the meme of, we'll bring it out when it's ready. You know, when is it coming out? When it's done. But no, I agree. I think it's a different company now. And people should realise that it's a different company with a different attitude. You have to judge it on what it produces right now. And if you're happy with what it produces right now, great. And if you're not, it's not going to look back and decide to change things to how they used to be. Site was WowVids, was it? I don't know. That doesn't ring a bell, but okay. It may have been then. I can't remember. Neelam, was it? It was a horde guild, I remember, because I remember what I think it might have been from a frost mage point of view, and it was undead. I seem to remember. Do I feel worried the lore is becoming rather limited due to the main enemies being defeated, and that they don't have any new enemies of the same power level to replace them without rehashing old content? I have a slight concern. I don't think it's an immediate concern, because I think they've still got enough stuff to do for another expansion, at least. So it's not... I'm not overly concerned. But if I was... Right, put it this way, like I've already said, so the game's been out 14 years. When the next expansion comes out, it'll be out 16 years. Expansion after that, 18 years. Expansion after that, 20 years. So it only has to have enough content for 3 more expansions, and it's 20 years old. Who gives a crap then? It's dead. It's legally dead at 20 years old, an MMO, isn't it? Well, I don't know. They keep like changing the parameters on that. But I think we can legally declare it dead at 20 years if it's still going. And if it's managed to have 3 more expansions with some sensible protagonist in it, and they could. I'm not saying I could think of 3 expansions worth. I could think of 1 or 2. After that, I'm not so sure. Because we have still got the Lich King, you know, sticking his nose in a bit more. Valve used to be the same, but it went in the other direction. Never. Do I think Method will stream World First Ragnarok? No, they've already said they're not going to. They've already said they're not going to do that. If you're talking about Classic, they've already said it's not a thing. Not doing it. RuneScape has more Google traffic than WoW, does it? Let's have a little quick brief look at this. Actually, I'm not sure how you measure traffic. I'm just looking at how many results there are. 121 million for World of Warcraft. A mere 18.7 million for RuneScape. Obviously, that's just results. That's how much stuff people are putting on that internet. Can't remember how you look at traffic now. Never mind. RuneScape has more things that need to be Googled, but there's still way more hits for World of Warcraft than there is for RuneScape on Google. Yes, the next expansion is going to be the Dark Kingdom. I thought I already told you the name of the next expansion. Doesn't anyone ever listen to me? If I view the traffic, RuneScape does have way more than... I can't remember how to view it anymore. I'll take your word for it. Do I think MMOs lack a dedicated supporter role like healers, but just... Yes. See, I would have no objection to a Ret Paladin like being a battle healer type role. A bit like a Discipline Priest, only you do it by clobbering things. Or like Discipline Priest used to be in Legion. I really don't know what it's like anymore. I haven't played it in BFA, even in the alpha. So I don't really know what they changed, if I'm honest. And because I'm not raiding, I'm not paying attention to what other classes are like. And I haven't played with a Discipline Priest. Sounds boring to you, but such roles are really high in demand. Yeah, I wouldn't find it boring in the slightest. Because you'd still be doing the same thing. I mean, I don't want a class where I'm just popping buffs on people. I had enough of that in vanilla. Even though it wasn't disastrous as some people will make out. But the idea of combining DPS with support, that would be fine. Isn't the Battle Priest idea just a discipline? Yes. But whereas a Discipline Priest does it with ranged abilities, a Paladin could do it with melee abilities. No different. You know, you could do that. I could play like this in Warhammer Online, because with the Disciple of Cain, and the same applied to the Warrior Priest as well. Although you generally healed from behind and used normal healing spells, there was an option to melee heal, so your melee attacks did a certain amount of healing to those around you, and you could do stupid amounts of damage as well. It was totally broken. The reason why you didn't do it that much is because you were also weak as hell. You absolutely needed a guard on you from a tank. And even then, you were a bit vulnerable. But you could rip the shit out of anything, and you did loads of healing around you. Now, I'm not saying they should make it so you do a ridiculous amount of DPS and heal as well. That would obviously be a nonsense. But that concept... You know, I'd be perfectly happy with that. And it could be done as just a... And like I keep saying, it could be done as a talent. They could have a talent row, which is just like seals. One seal, makes you sort of like you're single target focused. Another seal means you do quite a bit of splash damage with your stuff, so you won't do as much single target damage, but you'll do more AoE damage, more suitable for dungeons, things like that. Then another one could again reduce the damage of your abilities, but you do a certain amount of smart healing. Okay? You could maybe even have a mechanic a bit like Holy Paladins have with the beacon, where you put this mark, this beacon, you could still call it a beacon, on a particular player in your raid, and they get, you know, of the percentage of healing, maybe 50% goes to them and the other 50% is smart heals. Something like that. Uther in Heroes of the Storm as a melee healing build. That is fun. Okay, well, there you go. Should have all the freedom to swap specs in a class. Azeroth Reforgers are stupid. Yes, they are. And Blizzard, and this is it, Blizzard are stubbornly sticking to it as well. Beyond all reason. I really do not understand what their reasoning is on this. I don't get it. They haven't given a like sometimes they'll give a reason for something which I will disagree with, but at least I understand the reason. This one, they have not given any reason that makes any sense at all. Battle Priest reminds you of the character in Vikings from last season. I don't watch that, I'm afraid. Do I think that one spec and job specializations as well as being able to reroll classes simpler than 30 plus specs? Hang on. Sorry, I'm not sure what that's asking. Do I think that one spec and job specializations as well as being able to re-roll classes is simpler than 30 plus specs? We've got 36 specs. They don't need that many specs though. If they just, I don't know. StarCraft, I wouldn't like to play a sci-fi MMO. Like, they should... I'm not saying they should get rid of... Because, like, for a mage, for example, you don't need 3 DPS specs. And I'm not saying they can get rid of them at this point. They can't. They should never have put them in the first place. But what you could do is just do what they used to do. You have a class which has core abilities. And then you have individual specialized abilities that you use with that spec. And it'll play differently, but keep the utility the same. It would then be a lot more straightforward for them. I should mail it to Blizzard. Blizzard pay no attention to me. Do you know how many years I've been putting tickets in that gnomes are still in the game? And not one GM has even conceded the fact that it's a bug, an unintended bug in the game. They keep trying to pretend it's in there deliberately. You can get no sense out of these people. One of them even tried to tell me that gnomes were a good feature of the game. I didn't go Horde to murder gnomes. I was able to murder far more gnomes as Alliance than I ever was as Horde. How am I supposed to kill gnomes as Horde? I don't do PvP. I've got 0 chance of coming across them. As Alliance, I used to be able to kill them. It got more difficult. That was another gnome bias there. That was another bug in the game I used to write tickets about. Because in vanilla, it was actually quite easy to kill a gnome. Very easy. Gnomes were all DPS whores. So you'd wait. It was easier for warlocks, but mages you could do. Fire mages were easy to do it with. Frost mages it was tricky. You had to be quite cunning. But you would wait for them to be basically top of damage. Make sure they were high on threat. And then you would bop the tank. And then, obviously only on trash. You wouldn't do it on a boss. Unless you really wanted them to die. And then the Molten Giant, or whatever it was, would go over and pound the gnome. Unfortunately, if they were a Frost Mage, they might be a bit, because they knew what I was like, they might be a bit quick on the old ice block. And that, then the tank would grab it back. And their ice block, they could deploy that every time I had bop. But the other thing we used to do is, because I was like, a guild officer. And I used to organise the Paladin. So whenever there was a wipe, what would happen during a wipe is, obviously the hunters would feign death. But the warlocks, to get out of a repair bill, they would all do hellfire, because that took your health down and you could kill yourself with hellfire. But spell damage, you didn't take any repair costs. So what I used to do is make sure that every paladin was assigned to a gnome. I mean a warlock, but they were basically all gnomes. And then when a wipe was called, the paladins would go after that because they used to hide. The paladins would go after the warlock and we'd heal them up until the boss ate them. Teach them to try and get out of repair bills. They should just start treating us like random plebs and get rid of the faction so we can act like hired saws and choose who we work for, as the faction war seems contrived at this point. It is terribly contrived. It doesn't make sense from a story point of view, definitely. And but just from, like, for PvP, of course, you have to have a faction war. But for PvE, yes, there is no need for it. It doesn't even make sense in the storyline. There are plenty of characters that associate between the Horde and the Alliance anyway. Loads of them. So just to hell with it. I mean, Bane, for goodness sake, was writing letters to Anduin. Christ's sake, they're two leaders of their different factions. Bait the ice block with the bop, then DI the tank. No, you can't waste DIs for that. You use DI for white recovery as well. Because once all the gnomes were dead, then one of the paladins would use DI on another paladin to at least... And then you'd save 2 paladins a repair bill. Because the one who used DI wouldn't get one, and the one who gained from it wouldn't even die. And that was your white recovery. Now, the gnomes used to keep going on about soul stones as white recovery. No. We had better white recovery. Obviously, it was a fairly long cooldown on DI. Oh, do you know what, though? In TBC, I knew a paladin who used DI on a tank on Lady Vash. A very advanced progress kill. Well, it would have been a kill. It might have been a kill. It was a wipe in the end. And he put DI on the tank accidentally. That's not a mistake you ever make twice. Do you know what I learnt as well? Very important lesson, because I learnt this in a much less serious situation. I learnt it in a dungeon rather than a raid. Never put your bind for divine intervention next to your bind for lay on hands. You know, because then you have these 2 buttons next to each other. One of them is save the raid. One of them is wipe the raid. They should never be on next to each other, ever. I reminded you, the name of the expansion, don't you think that it has a purposeful double meaning? Battle between faction or control over Azeroth and for, as in for her soul. No, I think it has one meaning. It's the battle for Azeroth. The world soul Azeroth. It has nothing to do with a faction war. It doesn't make sense thinking of that. Because Sylvanas is not trying to take over Azeroth. So calling it Battle for Azeroth for faction war purposes doesn't make sense. She's not trying to take over Azeroth. She's just trying to kill the Alliance. This way, first half of the expansion is faction war, leads to the purple tentacles later on. No, the purple tentacles are coming right now. Well, they've already sort of been in. They've already been in. They just haven't been taken centre stage yet. Could listen to me go on about gnomes for ages. They're just... I don't understand. I don't understand the people who play them. And I don't understand the people who advocate people playing them or allow people to play them. I don't understand them on any level. And it's not like they have many levels being so short. Hi, Daniel. Oh, you've come in right at the end, unfortunately. Literally right at the end. I'm sorry. We've got like 2 minutes and then I've got to get off and make more videos. Oh, hello. What's this? But yes. So we'll have to see what limits have to say for themselves. It must be quite disappointing for them. But at least they're surely firmly established as world number 2. Obviously, they've still got to kill... I need to stop saying kill her. Defeat Jaina. Yes, I did. Yes. Limit haven't got owned. They just came second. We will see. I mean, if they kill Jaina in the next 24 hours, it's still close as far as I'm concerned. It may be less close than it was last time, but we'll see. Your lesson was don't DI the hunter pet as a joke. The pet doesn't know how to right-click the buff. The pet stood there under the boss during the post-wipe rebuff. Oh dear. DI faded. Yeah, it lasted about 30 seconds, I think, the original form of DI. And the pet pulled the boss. Yeah. Did I hear... All right, go on, last topic then. Did I hear about the WoW streamer Elvine? Yes, I did. But what I'm going to say is this. People may well take the view that they have full confidence in their police force and that they don't arrest people who are innocent of things. However, as I see it, someone, well, amongst a group, but one person in particular from the WoW community point of view, has been arrested. I don't even know that they've been charged. Arresting just means the police think you may have been involved in a crime and they wish to question you without you basically saying, I've had enough, I'm off. Then if they think you've done it, they charge you. Well, if they think they've got the evidence to prove it as well. Even that is not a conviction. You are supposed to be convicted in a court. So people really shouldn't be acting like this person is guilty of heinous crimes when so far I don't even know he's been charged, and even if he had, that's still not a conviction. So I would just prefer to leave it there. I don't know this person anyway. So for me, it's not really a big deal. But I was dismayed to see trial by media on my Twitter feed, being spammed with it. When I'm looking at them thinking, bloody hell, what's happened? And it's this guy who's been arrested. And yes, it may well be that they will be convicted because they're banged to rights. And you would expect most of the time that is true. You would expect a competent police force and an unbiased police force to do that most of the time. But not always. Basically, some WoW streamer who does, like, what does he do? Gold farming or something like that, has been caught in a police sting, or so they, allegedly, trying to groom young girls. But, that there's they're not being convicted of a crime. You should be innocent until proven guilty, is what I think. But anyway, yes, we have now run out of time. Thanks very much for coming on. I will be on again next week, of course. There will be another poll for another discussion video soon, but I'm still finalising what my 3 topics are going to be. So that'll be on there at some point. So anyway, hope you have a good evening. I've got to go and make another video for the other channel, so I'll see you.